this? Okay. Hi, I'd like to welcome everybody to the September school board meeting. And as is our custom, we will start the evening with a word of prayer. Mr. Thompson.
Well, we're grateful for your protection. Pray for those in Florida and Texas. Quick recovery for them. Thank you for the blessings that you give us. Thank you for the school corporation, those who give their time and effort to train and teach our children. Thank you, President.
Okay, well, we will move on to our recognitions then.
Thank you.
I'm not sure there's another group in our district of students that we recognize more frequently than the FCCLA kids. So it's great to have you guys back tonight and recognize and honor your accomplishments. So we have 4 students from SCHS. They were joined more than 7,500 FCCLA student leaders. That's Family, Career, Community Leaders of America. Old timers, that was home ec for us back in the day. But this is how it's evolved today. So to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about. So they competed with 7,500 other students from around the nation in Nashville, Tennessee this summer. And we had 4 students who won national gold medals that we'd like to recognize. First, Taylor Walker for her chapter service project display. Come on up, Taylor.
Congratulations, Taylor.
Sabina Kimball for entrepreneurship.
Congratulations.
Sarah Chambers for advocacy.
Congratulations.
Annika Cooper for her chapter service project display.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We'd also like to recognize their sponsor and their teacher, Mrs. Barb Torrey. Barb has also received the Spirit of Advising Award in recognition of being an outstanding FCCLA advisor, mentor, and supporter.
Congratulations. Thank you. I'll have you hold that for just a second as I explain what we're going to do next. Well, first I want to say congratulations, and I agree with Mrs. Nally. Every spring and leading into the fall, we get to honor you all, and that's just so amazing what you do. But we want you to talk a little bit about your project, introduce yourself, what grade you're in, and then if anyone is here in attendance with you, please introduce them. But here's the secret. Don't say, like I would say, well, that's my wife back there, and nobody knows her name. Let's see, well, that's Angie Clendenning, and she's here. She brought me here today, or something like that, okay? All right.
So, I don't know if I'm holding this close enough, but I'm just going to wing it. So, my name is Taylor Walker. I competed in chapter project service display with Annika. She was actually my partner. So, we both did this project about Pink Week, which was raising awareness for breast cancer. And we got gold at state and national level. And I came with my mom, Carrie, and my dad, Jason.
Well done.
Hi, my name is Savannah. I'm a senior at CHS, obviously. And I created an entrepreneurship. I created an Asian cuisine and sushi bar restaurant to go in our community of Franklin, Indiana. And I came with my dad, Dylan Kimbrell.
Hi, my name is Sarah Chambers, and I'm a junior here. I did a star event over advocacy, which I raised the awareness of homeless veterans trying to stay warm during the winter. And so then I created a coat drive to actually help supply them winter clothes to help keep them warm for this winter and the next. So yeah, that was me. Oh yeah, and I drove myself.
My name is Annika Cooper, and I partnered with Taylor, and we did Pink Week, which you heard about already. I graduated last year, so I don't go to school anymore here. And I came with my best friends tonight.
Well, very nice. And we definitely want to highlight Mrs. Torrey. She's recognized throughout the state and nation as one of the people that are strong advocates for FCCLA and what it does for kids. Her kids usually leave here with scholarship dollars, with opportunities that they wouldn't have if they did not participate in our class and also in our extracurricular club. So thank you so much for what you do for our school. And let's get one picture. Mrs. Betts is back there in the back, and we have Mrs. Up. We'll have you slide right there. Squeeze in, as she says. Thank you, everyone. That's short recognition tonight.
Okay, that concludes the recognitions. We're going to start the business portion of the meeting, and if you would like to stay, you are more than welcome, but if you like to exit this time, this will be a good time to go.
You're going to be up soon.
Okay. All righty, we'll move on to public and board comments. At this time, if anybody has any public comments that pertain to the agenda, you can step forward. Okay, seeing them, we'll move on to board comments. We'll start with the Music Council.
Music Council just met this evening. I missed the first half of the meeting. The second half of the meeting was really more around some of the physical challenges that we're trying to solve. Dr. Clinton, what was it first?
Yeah, first part was on storage. They're working with Mr. Sewell to look at storage options for band and choir. We're going to seek out an estimate on maybe making a door a double door, as well as look at tractor trailer combinations, and then maybe moving a storage container from CBIS to the school to accommodate all the things they're doing. In addition, did you talked about transitioning classes as well? On transitioning classes, we have kids that enter into band or choir, and then sometime through the year they decide to drop. Well, there's a financial obligation to that. So we talked a lot about what that looks like, so we're going to come up with the process, and Mr. Ahaus is going to reiterate that there is that obligation to financially pick up where you either ended or to complete the year as well. So we'll hear more about that in the coming weeks, but that's what we did talk about.
Okay, thank you. Athletic Council? Okay. Legislative Council?
Just a couple things. Teacher agreement, teacher appreciation grant was approved in the summer. But one thing that's new this year that Mr. Thompson's going to hear about on Thursday night is in the past they set aside dollars for both C9 and Earlywood. Now they are not, and they're asking us to partner with those entities. So you're going to hear more about that. We talked about it today in Discussables just a little bit. And so we're talking about $15 per ADM kid. So for us to be about 107 kids go up to C9. So Mr. Mercer would carve that out, and then we would send that up to them for their teacher appreciation. And then for Earlywood, Mr. Mercer and I have a couple ideas that we're going to talk to Earlywood about to maybe having them be part of our staff as we count them. So you'll hear more about that, but that is a legislative Indiana code that just got enacted that we need to make sure we have all the details covered.
Are we meeting to go over policy? I mean, I love looking at policies. I love looking at utility bills. So we get to do that this week?
We do. We are meeting on Wednesday. In addition, on the 18th, we open up formal negotiations with the teachers group. And we have a meeting with Mr. Lamb, Mr. Wirtz, Mr. Mercer, and I later this week just to have a conversation about the details on that. So.
I was referring to the we meeting Wednesday.
Yep. We're doing that back to back. So
okay.
First Neola and then collective bargaining.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Superintendent Strategic Task Force Council?
Yes, we're getting ready to schedule a meeting. We're going to talk about our goals, but specifically around a new grant called Title IV. Mrs. Nally and I are working on that. It's an incentive grant that was parceled out through the new ESSA, which replaced No Child Left Behind. And we need to consult community groups. So we're going to use a task force to do that. So look for probably the end of this month or at the latest, the first week in October. The grant is due the week we're on fall break.
Very good. Superintendent strategic plan projects.
We met and continue to have conversations around that. We're looking at the culture side of us, the employer of choice, and also around provider. Why do people want to come to our school district? And so we talked to the first task will be to look at the culture employer side. So Mr. Mercer will begin that journey. I know he had a meeting today, I believe, to talk about that. So any highlights you want to share on that right now, or just
Still structural framework types of things.
And then we'll continue to look at the provider, looking at opportunities that we may have. Once again, we're trying to draw people's attention to why we're one of the best school districts, and why you can get a great education here, and why you want to be with us. So you'll hear more about that in the coming weeks. Mr. Lamb and Mr. Thompson, Mr. Mercer, Mr. Still, and I have been meeting monthly, and we'll continue those meetings throughout the year as well.
Communication Committee, we meet next week. And we'll move on to collective bargaining.
We meet November 18th.
Article 9.
We meet this coming week. Nothing significant note from the previous meeting.
Okay, thank you. RDC.
Nothing news report.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any comments or questions? I have 2 motions.
No.
So, all those in favor, by the sign of aye? Aye. Any all opposed, by the same sign? Hearing none, the motion passes. We will move on down to superintendent reports, Gold Star Counseling, Union and Webb. Mrs. Dowling?
Sure, I'll introduce our counselors from Union last year when we went through this process, Sandra Brown, and then also Angie Clendenning from Webb, and they will come to the podium and tell you a little bit about their process.
We believe the board's already familiar with the Gold Star process. We're not the first schools that have been awarded this recognition in our district. The high school, the middle school, and also Creekside have received this already. But I am going to start by explaining just a little bit about what the Gold Star Award is. It's a national recognition for school counseling programs that have developed a comprehensive and accountable school counseling and guidance program. In Indiana, it would be aligned to the ISCA, or Indiana School Counseling standards, and as well as the ASCA, which is the American School Counseling Association standards. And so what I'll do just very quickly is kind of explain the Gold Star process and how we went through it. This started 18 months ago. It was in January of 2016. We began taking a look at our current programs the way they were. We did student surveys, counselor time use logs, a lot of data collection. We formed steering teams in our buildings, as well as advisory councils that were made up of community members. Between our 2 buildings, we had, I think we counted in the low 40s of members representing the college, local industries like Mitsubishi, local restaurants, parents, teachers, any community members that might have an interest in our young people and the up-and-coming working force. So they worked through this process with us. We met on a regular basis over the course of a year to examine the data that we collected of our current counseling programs. We created a vision together. We established program goals as we saw needs based on our data. We set priority goals based on those needs. We talked about expanding our resources, and this was an exciting year to actually be going through Gold Star when it came to expanding resources, and Sandra's going to talk about that in just a second. We identified the root causes for the deficits that we saw in our students' achievement. We explored delivery methods and activities that would address those causes, and then we designed a revised counseling program to address those needs. And so Sandra's going to talk a little bit about how that tied in with the rest of what the counselors were doing.
So there were kind of 2 things going on at the same time. while we were going through the Gold Star process, we were also doing a little bit of redesigning our school counseling program at Franklin Community Schools. And through the leadership of Deb Brown-Nally and a book called Evidence-Based School Counseling, we were led through a process, I think probably for the first time, all K through 12 counselors together, talking about our standards and working together to really make sure that our kids were getting what they needed from the ground up. And so that process was going on at the same time. We were awarded a planning grant through Lilly, and we also were working on an implementation grant as well at the same time for our district, and that we are waiting to hear about, hopefully the end of this month. Through this process, some of our takeaways were we were able, through the exploring delivery methods and activities, to actually come up with a K through 8 research-based program called Second Step. And that would be for the guidance lessons that we're doing in the classroom, as well as some tiered interventions for our kids as well in small groups. It also helped us to determine some gaps, and I'll let Angie talk about WEBS.
So an example of some of the things that we learned by going through this program, our advisory council pointed out that we had, as we looked at our student survey, our 3rd and 4th grade boys, when they answered the survey question, I wrote it down. I have the tools and skills to be organized at school. 72% of our girls in 3rd and 4th grade said yes to that, only 46% of our boys. And that was consistent almost exactly with numbers between 3rd grade and 4th grade. So the council looked at that. They said there's a need there. Those boys don't feel organized, even though they have the same tools that the girls have. And so as a result of that, we planned some tier 2 interventions. So we're currently doing student success skills groups with our boys in 3rd and 4th grade. So it'll be a lunch group. Our first one's tomorrow, actually, but it starts, I'll be working with our young boys, having them bring their agenda books down and taking a look at how we can use them, and trying some specific interventions on that exact need. And then we'll take another look at the end of the year and see if that helps them bridge the gap. So that's one example.
And one of the things at Union in our action plan was to have a counselor, and they got to have that with a 0.5 counselor this year, a part-time person there. And so that is really going to be a blessing for their building to have. Moving forward, as I said, we're waiting to hear about the Lilly implementation grant, because that is what we built our program design on when we did our redesigning program for Franklin Community Schools. So we are hoping to receive those funds to start implementation of all those programs. One of our biggest things is the new curriculum K through 8. So that's in the implementation stages already. And having our tiered interventions in small groups that are addressing the needs of the schools. We're really being very proactive with our new program, and that is part of the classroom guidance that all students will receive. And we want to give all students those skills necessary for social and academic success, and that's our real goal. So,
do you have any questions about anything, the program, what we did? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the summer food service feeding program. Mrs. Overton.
Thanks for allowing me to take a few minutes of your time this evening. I did take some pictures this summer. Some are not so good, some are okay. The Summer Food Service Program, as I believe you recall, is an extension of our breakfast and lunch programs. It's operated separately. The funding is separate from our regular school breakfast and lunch, but the mission is to feed those kids who maybe are participating in the free or reduced lunch program throughout the year and would not maybe have a good meal over the summer. So, the next slide. If you remember last year, we were fortunate to get a grant through the Glick Foundation, a $7,500 grant. So thank you again to Glick. And with that $7,500, in addition to what what we put from school food services, we bought a van. Yay! We love it. It's an awesome little guy. It's so much more efficient than using the box truck too. We can get everything we need to take meals out to our sites over the summer, so it's worked out really well. We advertise our summer feeding sites with flags and signs. This is a picture of some of our students coming through the Northwood breakfast line. Northwood is our open site. That's the primary site from which we operate. We serve breakfast and lunch there. We also put all our meals together to satellite to our out sites. It's really nice now because all of our programming is at Northwood. We included this year Cub Care and Cub Academy. So having everybody under one roof was a great advantage for us. And we thought breakfast and lunch, we really wanted to get the kids off to a good start. So we gave them a good breakfast. They did their programming, had fun. We did our farm to school program in summers this year. We had some fresh corn on the cob, locally grown melons, and some cherry tomatoes, all kinds of varieties. We work with Nature's Gift, who is a farm in Morgantown. They also have a stand at the farmer's market and a stand on 135. I don't know if you guys have ever seen them, but they're really awesome to work with. It's nice to be able to utilize some of those things in the summer. So much of our growing season, obviously, is outside of the regular school year. So to be able to incorporate some of those things in our summer meals is pretty awesome. This is what we did with our van. I took some pictures at Country View Mobile Community. That is probably our biggest satellite site. We really love going to Country View. We have great participation there. This year, we probably doubled our participation at Country View. They pulled in a lot of new homes, and so we had a lot of great kids. So you can see the girls are pulling their cooler out. They're actually feeding right off the back of the van. We also, if you can see in this gentleman, he just looks a little older maybe than a student, which he is. In addition to feeding our kids, we do actually sell some paid adult meals. So that is something that we can do or are allowed to do. So these guys are some of the maintenance guys that work at Country View. We fed the gal in the office at Country View every day. So that's a nice thing for them to be able to do as well. For us, to me, it's giving back and connecting with the community. I think a lot about, what we do in food service and what we do in the summer feeding program. These gals love to connect with the kids. The nice thing too is they may be working in areas they don't normally work in. They work with staff from other buildings. They work with kids from other buildings. The kids really get to know them. We get to go to really work closely with the kids, and they really enjoy it. We are the largest and still growing summer food program in Johnson County. A lot of the other corporations this year noticed drops in numbers. We continue to increase our numbers, so that makes me really happy. We're also always looking at where we can do better, where we might move some of our sites to draw in some of our other kids. So it's a great program, and we will definitely continue to do it. I guess for me, I think about my home might be in Marion County, but my heart's in the Franklin community. So we'll continue to do what we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to 10X grants. Amanda Martin with her magical leadership.
Okay, so I'll start here. I don't know if you could tell by the picture or not, but where we went. But giving you a little history, we had just came off a week at the fair. So any of you fair parents know out there how exhausting the week can be. So we came home at 8 o'clock Sunday, and we boarded a flight Monday morning, and they woke up to these shirts. And without giving any names, there's a couple of them in my family that were not very thrilled about wearing them through the airport. So needless to say, our trip kind of got off. We had some grumpiness. So I had applied for a grant, and I named it the Magical Leadership. It was with the Disney Institute, and it was a course that was called Disney's Approach to Leadership Excellence. Let me show this up. So why did I want to go to Disney to learn about leadership? Well, I wanted to learn the Disney way. If you know anything about the organization, you always know that they're pretty much flawless, and I wanted to learn how and why and how, you know, the details. So the other thing is I wanted to get a better understanding in my role and how it can contribute to some culture building and team support. I also wanted to understand how my personal values should be aligned with FCS and how that would impact culture and growth. As always, you want to improve your leadership skills and communication skills. And then I also wrote for the grant to witness the Disney way at Disney World. So we arrived on Monday, and on Tuesday morning, I woke up and my family was obviously still exhausted, a little jet lagged, and I got a cup of coffee, and the cup said, "We keep moving forward, opening up new doors and doing new things." And immediately I thought, oh, Disney and FCS are alike in a lot of ways, because I feel like with the 10X grant, that's something that's very innovative, and it's very much, we own that. So I thought, okay, this is going to be a great day. So I went and I learned a great deal, and they let me graduate. Got my own very, Mickey ears and a diploma. So I'll talk a little bit about what I learned in just a second. So then we took a few days to explore Disney, relaxed a little bit, got to see some of their values and goals in play. So when I had to really sit down and think about what did I bring back to Franklin, there was so much at this conference, and if you ever get an opportunity to go, I highly, highly recommend it. But I pretty much narrowed it down to one was how important maintaining our values and our vision are. They kept talking about creating experiences, and if you create an experience, you create a feeling, and you always remember that feeling. So that is something that I loved, and I'm hoping that my role in health and wellness, that we can create those experiences and create that avenue that people will remember how important that is. And then also always the importance of communicating. Leaders across any organization, they really have to establish who we are, what we stand for, why we're heading in the direction we are. So it's very important to communicate that on all levels and to all stakeholders. So those are two of the big things that Disney across the organization. You asked the person picking up the trash all the way to the CEO, they all could name, the 4 key elements to the organization. So that was so impressive to me. They also look at all of their employees as leaders, and they enable them to grow as professionals. So I think that was very interesting. I really enjoyed that. They also talked about the details. Sometimes details get overlooked, and sometimes we spend, you hear it, oh, don't get hung up in the details, go to the big picture. But Disney, the details are really, really important. So Walt Disney had quotes. I'm sure a lot of you have already been to Disney, but everywhere you went, and shocking, but they were building something new at Disney World. And there was this quote that says, when we consider a new project, we really study it, not just the surface, but everything about it. So I thought, oh, that was kind of interesting. Well, we got to do a behind the scenes tour on our conference, and they took us to Blizzard Beach. And in the picture over here, it looks like it's just a water for, the garden, like landscaping. Well, they pointed out to us that it actually isn't. It's so that their guests' feet don't get hot when they're walking on the concrete at water parks. So it's just the little things that I think make Disney so successful, among many others. So I don't know, I'm going to be paying more attention to the details, I guess, because, it makes a big difference. So it was a magical experience, and I want to thank everyone and anyone who participated in creating the 10X, because it was magical. So that's it. Thank you. Do you have any questions? No? Good? Okay.
Thank you. Okay, and then next we have Kat Sarles and Sarah Records talking about their journey to South Africa.
Southern Africa. We were
Southern, it was a,
several places.
okay, Southern.
Good evening. I'm Kat Sarles. I teach here at the high school. I do world history and U.S. government, and my cohort in crime.
I'm Sarah Records. I teach first grade at Creekside Elementary.
And we were part of the first year cycle of 10X, although we were the last to be able to take our trip. And we did nearly 3 weeks in South Africa, Zambia, and Botswana. Bringing it back to our classroom in both real and tangible ways, as well as the intangible ways. So to start us off tonight, we have a little bit of a video. I have to warn you, 3 weeks, 3 countries, 2 perspectives, and we had 3 to 7 minutes to get it accomplished. So this was a bit of a Herculean event to get this distilled down, but we'd like to share with you sort of the visual perspectives. The GoPro was obviously provided to us and give us a chance to share with you our experience up close and personal with Africa's Big Five.
The day we arrive on the planet, can we step into the sun? There's more to see than can ever be seen, more to do than can ever be done. There's far too much to take in here, more to find than can ever be found. But the sun rolling high, the sapphire sky, each great and small on the endless round. It's the circle of life, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and love, till we find our place for the path winding in the circle of life.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Fox, S-P-A-R-K-S, Fox. are the next political thing. I spent 7 years here on Providence. I was charged in 1983 and released in 1990. My charge was terrorism under Section 29. So don't be afraid, I'm not going to terrorize you.
Okay, so that's a bit of the video portion. Sarah and I want to kind of walk you through what our experiences were. We spent 4 days in Botswana, which is a very young country in terms of its independence, 1966, and has set aside about 40% of its country's land for conservancy. So we did an awful lot of exploration on game drives. And on the last day, we went to Mabele Primary School, which I'm going to talk about in half a second.
We stayed at Mchenje Safari Lodge. So the top 3 pictures you see there are from our accommodations. The very far left was our chalet where we were at. Mchenje has 11 different chalets, all thatch roofed. So roughly 22 guests that can stay at a time there on the property. The middle picture there is our main lodge, along with the right picture from the outside there. And Mchenje sits just a few miles away from Chobe National Park. It's the first national park in Botswana, and boasts the largest herds in terms of animal numbers, especially when it comes to the elephants. So we were fortunate enough on our game drives to see great quantities of zebra, of impalas, and of course elephants.
So these are just a few of the shots, of course, the neck and giraffes and that sort of thing. For me, the draw, of course, is elephants. It's my favorite animal. The elephant in the upper corner was bathing in the reed bed, and our boat was, I don't know, 6 feet away from him. He turned to look right at my camera as I was taking the pictures. So you have a really up-close and personal experience when you're traveling in Botswana. Botswana is a country that's only 50 years old. It was originally a British protectorate. It gained its independence in 1966. They have, of course, all of the fascinating animals and flora and fauna. But Mabele Primary School, there's Ms. Renger. We went to the elementary school to experience what education systems in Botswana is like. The schools in and of themselves offer accommodations for their teachers to live at. They have a little under 200 students, 50-50 on genders. Botswana provides free education to everybody K through college through government schools. If you want to do a private school, obviously you're going to have to pay a little bit more for those particular efforts. This group of young men, super cute. This was a 3rd grade classroom working on their English skills. Super excited to see a camera, so outside of mauling me to look at the camera and all the pictures and stuff, we had an opportunity to sit down and chit chat with the kids, talk to the teacher. We were there on June 16th, which is National African Child Day. So on the entire continent of Africa on June 16th, the kids get to decide what they're going to do at school, not the adults. So clearly not a whole lot of like 2 + 2 going on and learning how to speak a whole lot of the language and a heck of a lot of play going on. To celebrate the children of Africa. So it was a lot of fun to be able to be there. Limited supplies for sure for the students, but certainly an energy and an effervescence that our students mimic here in the States.
Do they go year round?
Not like 12 months. They have like a summer vacation portion. Of course, when we were there, it was the winter time, so school was in session, but they would have the traditional Christmas vacation. Botswana is a Christian nation. And then would have various breaks every couple of weeks. They'd have a couple of days off, and then 2 months in the summertime, just like we had here. We crossed the river. It's an interesting river crossing from Botswana into Zambia. I just spent a couple of days there. Zambia is a relatively poor nation with an extraordinarily high HIV rate. And so there were really a limited amount of things that in our tour group we were able to kind of explore. But certainly Victoria Falls, which is here in the picture, was the eye-getting event for us.
So just accommodations again, really quick. When we were in Zambia, we stayed at the River Club. So the 3 pictures on the left-hand side. The River Club does sit right off of the base of the Zambezi River. It is an estate that used to be privately owned before it was purchased and kind of renovated. The different houses and chalets that are there are all named after war heroes or explorers who played some part in Zambia's history. So the bottom picture there is kind of the river we stayed. The middle one kind of shows the main grounds. Of course, weather there is beautiful in the wintertime. Great weather. So all of our dining experiences were outside, and so just great opportunity. And then of course, like Kat said, Victoria Falls was kind of the big draw for us, especially for me when we were there. We were fortunate enough to take a helicopter ride over top of Victoria Falls, which was absolutely incredible. One of my favorite parts of the trip. Totally different story for Kat. She does not do heights. That was very much me dragging her by the arm saying, come on, you're going to want to do this, I promise. And she did it once and we'll never ever do it again. But I absolutely loved it. So we spent about 20 minutes up in the air over top of it was really neat to get that perspective of it. Once we were down on the ground, your visibility is significantly limited to actually be able to see the falls. So taking in that aerial perspective was just incredible to really get a feel for how the falls works and what it looks like. We also had a chance to see double rainbow while we were there. And at one point, walking on the ground, we went over a bridge, kind of walking in front of the falls, and had the opportunity to see a full rainbow, which actually is a circle. So that was really super cool to see, kind of overlooking the edge of the bridge and see that complete circle rainbow. It was pretty incredible.
Back on terra firma, which is where I prefer to be, we did Sunset River Cruise as well as a rhino bushwalk. Zambia, in the entire nation, which is slightly larger than the state of Texas, has 14 rhinos in the entire country. It is so critically endangered there. 12 of them were in the rhino park that we went. So they drove us in and they gave us an armed escort to get out of the Jeep and walk into the bush to find these rhinos, which are the size of Volkswagen bugs and strong enough to run you over. In the process, we saw 4 of their 12 rhinos in the park, so we saw 1/3 of the available rhinos. The baby rhino is the newest addition. They do really close population control on the rhinos because they are so highly endangered and are on the uptick of being poached 3 a day in southern Africa. So they're not being poached for food. This is not bushmeat that is being consumed. It's really just for the horn, which is basically your fingernail. But they're being used for homeopathic and holistic remedies in Asia. But the walk on the wild side really was, you were on the ground with an armed guard in case an animal were to charge at you or to be able to deter a rhino charge. They don't see very well, and the babies are super curious. So the video that you saw as they were walking towards us, they were literally as far from us as Natalie is sitting. So the baby sniffed us out, would start walking toward us, and the armed guard was like, okay, we gotta move. Then he'd come at us, okay, we gotta move. So we kept moving because the baby would keep coming towards us and had to be at a safe distance from mom, more so than from baby.
Yeah.
Broke it.
I did. I did it again. There you go.
South Africa was broken into 2 parts. We did Kruger National Park and then we did Cape Town and the surrounding area. A lot of game drives again. We did a lot of eating al fresco into the bush. And we're able to experience Kruger National Park, which is world famous for its availability of conserved animals.
So obviously one of the big draws to Kruger National Park are all of the big cats. Every single game drive that we went out on, we had the opportunity to run into some sort of cat. Lions predominantly were the animal that we saw lots of, big, huge, packs of at least 10 or more. So that was really cool to see, ranging in all different ages, as you saw in the video, from little cubs that were no more than a couple months old to full-grown males at some point. We also had the opportunity to see 2 different leopards at times and some cubs at one point with the leopards. One of the coolest things was finding the leopard at night that you saw in the video as we were driving along and just watching him. He was on the hunt for something, following the track of something else. Thankfully, it wasn't our vehicle. But kind of watching him as he maneuvered along and followed the scent trail. And then 2 male cheetahs that we happened to run across, which was really a big deal, not only for us to be able to see those, but our guides as well. Cheetahs cover a mass amount of territory, and so to see them frequently, even in Africa, is very, very difficult to do. Our guides who do this on a daily basis said it had been nearly 2 months since they had last seen the cheetahs kind of patrolling around where we were. So they were pretty excited to have them back in the area and the opportunity to see them as well.
Just as a side note, this leopard up here at the very top was in our lodge camp.
Yeah, literally walking down the sidewalk.
Yeah, behind the gift shop.
We happened to be, he came up onto the walkway, and the lady working the curio shop closed the glass doors, and he was just chilling right down on the other side. She jumped on the radio and was like, we have a leopard outside the gift shop on camp. Somebody want to come help us? So, of course, our tour guide was like, let's check it out. So, we hit the gas on the Jeep and took back toward camp to watch him pounce into the bush after a flock of birds. So that was kind of fun. And then, of course, Kat mentioned, just a lot of bush dining and eating outside. We had the far picture there on the left was our breakfast setup one morning. They created this area for us in this kind of washed out riverbed. And the picture here on the right, a lot of open cooking, just over the fire. Amazing food. They told us straight away, if you came to Africa to go on a diet, it's not going to happen. We will feed you well, and they did. Lots of 4-course, 6-course meals every meal of the day. So a lot of really good dining. We had the opportunity, the middle picture here down at the bottom was the lodge that we stayed at. Our table literally sat right there on the back of this watering hole where elephants would come and be just on the other side of the rail from me, hanging out, sipping water, yelling at other elephants to back away because they wanted their turn at the water hole. And so just to be there and have that close proximity was really neat. That top picture there in the middle was canopies we had one night before dinner out in the middle of the bush, which ended up being a really cool night. We had just pulled in with our Jeep to do the canopies, and I get out of the Jeep and they set up a little wash basin for us to wash hands and things like that. And I'm sitting there, I'd just been given a squirt of soap, and our tracker, who is incredible, oh my gosh, there's a leopard. And I'm thinking he means literally, 4 feet behind me. And I kind of turn around and I don't see anything. And he's like, we gotta go, get in the Jeep, let's go find this thing. I'm like, what do you mean find? There's nothing around. He had spotted this leopard
half a mile away.
I mean, had seen this thing in the bush. We take off after it, followed around for a little bit, eventually lost it in the bush. But came back, enjoyed our evening after having gone on this, rapid chase for the leopard, only to then head back to our campground for our main course meal. And in the course of maybe 5 minutes, as we are driving back, we ran across another leopard. We turned the corner and saw a rhino crossing the road. And then we had
the hyenas chasing
hyenas that were chasing Impala, trying to get killed for the night. So lots of things in a very, very short amount of time.
Okay, so I have the lodge under, so we stayed at Tinswalo Safari Lodge. So we've got several shots of it, the main lodge, our accommodations, and of course the water spout on the back deck. One of the nights we had a Boma dinner. If you were to be in the bush alone and you wanted to survive the evening and there was no tree to climb, then you would build a Boma, which is a sort of a natural enclosure made out of acacia branches, which had the 6-inch long needles and that kind of stuff. Well, they had a permanent Boma set up for us to be able to be entertained by not just the incredibly gifted chef who served us wild game that night, but also a group that came through of bands of people to sing and dance for us. And Sarah and I, relatively younger than the other people that were there, were immediately pulled out to do some stomping and some, I would consider, aggressive Irish jig dancing, but we were out there having a good time with the effort, dancing and having a lovely event, so over dinner dancing. Rhinos, of course, are a big focus. Sarah and I both donated monies to be able to help with Rhino Conservancy. They're going to we had a Western doctor in 2009 make a statement in the national news that his wife's cancer was cured because she consumed rhino tusk. And so there was another big tick of people who have now gone on to coach rhinos, which is why you see it in the graphic. They estimate by sometime 2025, 2030, there will no longer be wild rhinos on planet Earth if something is not done in a catastrophic hurry for this particular effort. So the Rhino Conservancy efforts, the poaching units, the anti-poaching units, and that sort of thing is a big part of trying to conserve an animal that is on the cusp of extinction. We moved from Kruger National Park to Cape Town, and we did Cape Town and the surrounds, and this kind of brings us to the final portion of our particular presentation. The background picture is Table Mountain, which is sort of the iconic look of Cape Town. We did Cape Town and Robben Island. We did a whale watching adventure out to Dyer Island where Shark Week is filmed. We went out to Haute Cabrera, which is in Franschhoek, and then out to Grootboos and Cape of Wallis, Cape of Good Hope. We did all kinds of oceanic-based things.
So yeah, Table Mountain, like Kat was talking about, the iconic piece of Cape Town there. We took a cable car from about midway up the mountain all the way to the top. You can see it there in that far left middle picture. Really cool opportunity. The cable car actually spun, so did a 360 view. So by the time we left the bottom, once we reached the top, we had done a full circle around the inside of our cable car, giving us really cool panoramic view looking out over the mountain and Cape Town down below, the ocean view and things like that. And then Haute Cabrera was one of a few vineyards that we had the opportunity to visit in Franschhoek. Really cool place. They also did a sebrage for us, so if you're ever in need of somebody to come to your next party and really fancily open up a bottle of champagne for you, just provide the sword and Kat and I, we got you. We learned how to do that.
Without any glass shards.
No glass shards. We are perfectionists at this. Trust us. And then we also had the opportunity to go out to Stony Point to check out the African penguins. Penguins are obviously not something you would normally think of when you think of Africa, but something I was super excited about. Penguins are my favorite animal, so I really enjoyed this part of the trip. African penguins, if you paid attention in the video, it had a little blurb about, hey, get out of my way, donkey boy. The African penguin is technically known as the jackass penguin because it actually brays like a donkey. They have since renamed it the African penguin, which I'm super grateful for, so I can talk about that in my classroom now. But one of the things that we learned while we were out there with the penguins, the African penguin in particular is another animal that is critically endangered. The guano that the African penguins use to create their nests in the last several years has actually been harvested for fertilization purposes. And in doing so, it is causing the penguins to not have something that they can use to build their nests and build their homes to protect eggs from the heat of Africa's sun. And so because of that, a lot of the eggs are being overheated and things like that, so the population isn't able to sustain itself. So in another effort to do some animal conservation, Kat and I helped to purchase a home, a shelter for the penguins that they're putting here on the island to be able to protect them from the heat. It basically just kind of looks like a dog shelter actually, but someplace that they can go where they can kind of burrow and nest and be protected from the heat. And then the funny little sign there, check under your car for penguins. I mean, there's no fence. They come and go where they please, and we really are just in their territory. So we really didn't have to check under our bus before we left to make sure that something hadn't wobbled under and found safety in there in the shade. And then Dyer Island for the whale watching, like Kat said, Dyer Island is home to Shark Alley, where Shark Week is filmed. Unfortunately, we did not have the opportunity to see any sharks. I was really hoping we might see one. But in the area at the moment, there were a couple killer whales who were kind of wreaking havoc on some of the sharks and attacking them for food purposes. And so it has actually scared away quite a few of the sharks and it's keeping them at bay because of these two kind of rogue whales that are doing some damage there. But in the process, we were able to see some humpback whales, and then there on the middle of the island are 60,000 Cape Fur seals. So we had a chance to kind of check them out and watch them in action.
Okay, so I'm going to round this out really quickly. We did a whole bunch of Cape visits. So we went to the Cape of Good Hope, which of course is important for 15th and 16th century European exploration around the continent of Africa. We went to Cape Point, which is the southwestern point. We went to Cape Wallis, which is the furthest south that you can go. We also went out to Robben Island, which is a big part of my classroom, talking about democracy. And of course, Sparks was our guide, former terrorist, reformed political expert here today, and gave us a tour of Robben Island, which does not allow you to have free roaming on the island. It's still an inhabited island, so you have to stay with your tour company. But we did Robben Island. The other part that I think is really important, because I think most of us have this TV-inspired understanding of ships in Africa. You have white homes, the white Boers, the Dutch and British descendants who live in what we would consider to be standard homes. Then they have the colored homes, which are for Muslims and Indians. And they paint their homes very, very bright colors and those sorts of things. And then they have two segregated portions for colored or black Bantus, which are Native African tribes that come into town to make fast money to send back to the tribes that live in the bush. And then you have the black townships, which are government housing. In Africa, the color differentiation is not nearly as maybe as prescriptive as it was here in the 1950s, where you were either black or white. There's gradations of it, and so to determine what classification you were at schools, they would do a pencil test. They would stick a pencil into your hair, and if it fell out, then you were classified white or colored. If it got stuck in your hair, you were considered to be black Africans or blackies. So it wasn't as clean cut, and it certainly isn't as Hollywood-esque as you think it might be. But just that delineation and separation is a huge teaching tool for our students to understand apartheid and the newly established democracy that South Africa has celebrated the last 2 decades or so. The Proteus Lion on the far side is the most famous lion from South Africa's Finnecoast, which is an ecological reserve. It has the same kind of ecology as the Mediterranean. It's the only other place in the world where you find Mediterranean-esque weather. It's along the southern tip of Africa. Sarah and I at the division point between the Indian and Atlantic Ocean. So she pushed me into India. I threw her back into the Atlantic. So we got ourselves a line here. You know, the separation between Atlantic to Indian, because only the Atlantic has seaweed, the Indian Ocean does not. There's no seaweed on our side. So there's some interesting things to be learned while we were at the Finnecoast staying at the groups. I think that wraps up the trip. This is how we're applying it into our classrooms to try and figure out ways to incorporate the African continent, specifically Southern Africa, into a fairly sparse curriculum that we have here in the States, ways to energize the kids using animals and, of course, the adventures that we saw. Sorry,
Well, I have one, but it's really for Dr. Clendenning. And I'm pretty sure that senior board members should get a 10X grant to go to Africa.
And I know 2 teachers who would escort you.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've been to Africa twice, but I would certainly go again.
Yeah, it was really fantastic. I cannot thank the 10X committee more. This really is a huge opportunity that no other districts are providing. It's a shame that other districts don't figure out a way to reward their teachers. And if anything, we came back more than ready to get into the classroom to share our experiences. And I look forward to the next opportunity for us to maybe take advantage of the 10X and see. Australia, I think, is our next kind of hit. It's a trick to find somebody who likes to travel as much as you do. Any others? Thank you. I tried to do Great job. Yes, thank
you.
No, it was great.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, well, we will move on and have fun following that, Mr. Sewell. I don't think it'll be nearly as exciting, but.
That's not true.
Good evening. Last month, we promised you an overview of the two roads projects that are neighboring the middle school and Needham Elementary. And I wanted to take the opportunity to thank Mayor Barnett and Mark Richards and our engineering firms that have been working on that, and to highlight the very good partnership we've had with the city on this. This is one of the first projects that I was introduced to when I first started with the corporation, and from the very beginning it's been very positive. They've been very open to deciding how to best make these projects work with our schools. And so we've invited the engineers here this evening to give you an overview of those projects and to answer your questions. First, I've asked Mr. Trent Newport to be here tonight, and he's going to talk about the Eastview Drive project. And I think you're going to have to, we're going to need you to be on the microphone. Yeah, and you can, yeah, if you want to pop it, that'd be great.
Awesome. Thank you again, Trent Newport with Crossroad Engineers. I was actually here this spring, so maybe a few months ago, to talk about this same project. So there's probably a few little differences since the time that we were here in the drawing, but the main part of it is where the roundabout is has not changed. We made some adjustments here on this drive, which would be your northwestern drive. And that was due to some concerns of lengthening the left turn lane. So if you come out of the roundabout and you're heading west on 100 North or Upper Shelbyville there, we moved that drive to the west a little bit so that there'd be more stacking room on the roadway for entering. So a little bit of difference there. And then obviously the big difference you can see is this drive. So since we've been talking with the school here for several months, and since I was here last time, we understood that there was an interest to donate the right-of-way that was needed for the project from the school to the city. And in that spirit, we also met to talk about, you know, what kind of things the school would like to see to try to help make some improvements on the property. And so what we did, again, on the drive on the north there, we moved it to create that stacking room. And then this drive here is probably the biggest improvement on the school side. Obviously, the drive where it comes out, where the roundabout was set, it could come out there. It could stay where it was at. But there was an interest to have the drive come down and provide some more stacking. This length of drive is about 650 feet long. And it would allow for either 16 buses or about 32 cars to stack on that entrance. It obviously lines up with the drive that goes in through the new development across the street there from Eastview. And just a quick estimate on the cost of that drive is somewhere in the $80,000 area. Obviously, we won't know until we have it bid, but we know pretty well what estimates are going to be. And that is a cost that the city would put within the project, the city would pay for. And so what you see in the yellow is called proposed right-of-way, and then the orange is temporary right-of-way, which means we just need it in order to get the project done, and then it reverts back. But the yellow would be permanent right-of-way, and it's to catch the path and the sight lines for the roadways. And some grading and so forth, and to connect to the path that's already there, obviously. The proposed right-of-way is about 1.2 to 1.3 acres. That's the permanent right-of-way. And then the temporary right-of-way is a little larger. It's close to 2 acres, just a little under 2 acres that we would need. But again, that's just allows us to build those drives, and then it reverts back. And anything we would disturb as far as the grass and so forth, we would restore that through the contract as well. So the timing for the project is still hitting next summer's break. So that almost 2-month window you have, I'm not sure if you have actually 2 months, but close to that. So we would hit that for a closure. We talked a little bit at the last time I was here about there's another roundabout we're doing up the road here to the west and northwest of this at Eastview and Hurricane. That one we're planning to still build under traffic. So traffic would remain open east and west. We would shut down the north and south legs for portions, but we're intending to try to get that done in the springtime before school's out, and then do this one in the summertime that school is out. So be happy to answer any questions. One thing about this project, it is have federal money in it. It's actually going to be the last of the relinquishment money that came from State Road 44 relinquishment, and so it has to be bid and built by next year. Yeah, Mark? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think I mentioned that last time I was here too. The sign location is up there, kind of where that path, you can see right there. Yeah, so we will relocate that. I think what we talked about is relocating it up in this area, in that temporary kind of, that's why that's a little wider, to take that drive out and put it there. But to be honest, that's something we'll continue to work with the school, and can relocate it wherever they feel is best. So don't really have a preference on that. We're going to try to reuse a lot of the material that's on that as best we can, and put that sign back in a location that makes sense. Cost of the project, you mean? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. The cost of the sign is part of the project as well. So, I mean, literally, there would be nothing we would be coming back to the school for and saying, you need to pay for this. The drives, the moving the sign, I don't know if there's anything that we would be, I can say there's nothing that we'd be coming back saying this is the school's cost. And so that's the great part about the partnership. And we are kind of looking at a deadline of having, we have to have all of our right-of-way documents completed no later than October 13th and submitted. And so that's kind of the schedule that we're on in order to wrap everything up. Be happy to answer any questions.
So a couple of questions you had at the last meeting. You asked about the acreage of this parcel and what we might do with it. So wasn't that about 6 acres, Mark, when we drew it out? Yes. It was about 6 acres. We talked about whether that would ever be a sports facility or anything like that, and with it being an elementary school, it's kind of decided that a soccer field or a football field really didn't make a lot of sense there. So we're confident that the driveway will help us with solving the traffic concerns that we continue to get calls from parents concerned about how traffic is flowing out there. So we think that's a good solution.
So what is the quantity of land you need to acquire from the school? Is it less than 2 acres? Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Your new right-of-way is 1.some acres?
Yes, just under 1.3 acres is the permanent.
Okay, and that's what you would need to acquire in addition to what you've already got.
That's correct. Okay. And then the temporary is 1.9. Okay. The only other right-of-way we need for the project is actually on the north side at the Casting property. There's already been land granted on the east side as part of the development of that subdivision. When it was done, the city knew that they were going to be doing a roundabout, so they worked with a developer on that. Everything on the west side, the city already owns.
Okay, and to the extent utilities may need to be relocated, that's all going to be on the city's dime?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I don't know that there are any of the utilities that are in easements, so it's probably on the utility dime, but we will be coordinating with them and have already, we're well into those efforts.
Thank you. Procedurally, what do we need to do? Convey the real estate once they give you a legal description. Grant the right of way. I'm not sure. Are you going to take a fee, or are you just going to take a right of way? Or?
Yeah, we would take it fee simple, and that's typically what they do on federal aid projects. So it would be a warranty deed, a fee simple transaction. We have the plats and descriptions ready, and then all the other documents are standard NDOT form documents that we would use.
So what you would do is at some point, once they've got the legal description and it's been looked at from the school side, it would just come to you as an action item to authorize the transfer of that real estate to the city.
You said October 13th?
October 13th is when we have to have it all turned in. They have to be recorded documents at that point. So I mean, we discussed that you have a October 9th board meeting, so that cuts it short, but I do think it gives us enough time. If you happen to have another meeting in the meantime for other things, then it might be good to do it then. Just give us a little bit more time. So
we actually have a meeting on the 29th.
at Webb Elementary in the morning. We could add that as an action item coming out of a work session. One other question, Eden has a second sign. It is close to where the permanent drive sits today. What is happening to that sign?
We would relocate it as well. So we haven't talked about the location of that. So I don't know if it'll go by the other drive.
It'll probably just move in.
Just move down.
Yeah.
Maybe into this corner here.
Okay. Thank you.
Or near this drive. But we would anything that we impact in those right-of-way areas, we will move.
So I have some questions for you. So I'd like for you to talk about schedule development and schedule risks. We've got a 2-month window that you're going to be impacted, right? So I really want you to, when you come back on the 29th, I would like a detailed schedule with schedule risk and mitigation plans for those schedule risks. So I don't know if you've done soil analysis yet, but if you need to do soils, let's do those quickly so that we don't have any time, given the scope of what you're doing, for an unintended consequence associated with something that we missed on the design. So I'd really like for you to explore that so that we understand your schedule development, schedule risk, and what your mitigation plans are for those.
Okay.
Does any of that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Maybe it would from one engineer to the other. So.
Yeah, we built a lot of these, and we have very good knowledge of soil in the area already. But we did take soil samples as well as part of the federal aid project and what we had to do for there. So we have geotech and so forth. So the 2-month window is actually most times we're building them nowadays. We're trying to build them in 45 days, and so not that we have a lot of room to play there, but we have enough. And when if we get into that time, it's not like we're not even close to being done at that point. You know, we would definitely have access in and out, and we often do that. So we'll set that per contract. So the contractor that bids it, the risk is on him to get it open. And so if he doesn't, then he has to have a provision or he pays liquidated damages, on top of that as well.
Okay, so let's go back. I'm not just interested in the construction schedule. It's the entire schedule to get to that point so that the day we're out of school is the day you're moving dirt. Or on that leg right there, you can obviously move before. So please understand, we're not interested in liquidated damages. What we're interested in is the day they start school that there's no issues.
Right. So we're not going to let the project and have bidders just right before school starts. We actually have a February, is it a February or March letting? Or is it April letting? So we have an April letting. So basically we will have a contractor ready to go middle of May and be waiting for school to be out. So this goes through the NDOT letting system.
So that's what I want to see is that entire schedule development.
Okay.
So we understand what our potential risks are associated with that. So again, liquidated damages doesn't do us any good.
Right. I understand that.
First day of school or whatever that date is, that doesn't help us at all. Right? Yeah. So we really need to make sure that all of those risks are well understood and managed appropriately.
I understand. I think this will be about my 10th roundabout in front of a school. Seems to be a popular place to do them in many cases, impacting schools. You know, the first one we did in Franklin was outside of a school area as well, right there on North Main Street was their only access in. So we understand that very much. Yeah, and I can provide some information.
Trent, another question. We talked about in our meeting
that the entrance there on the north end, I think, to maybe turn it into a right turn lane, a left turn lane into our property. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, this is a little wider on the north side of that, as you can see. So there's a left turn lane there, if that's what you're talking about.
We got
the road on the school property, exiting school property.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So yes, it will be wide enough for a right and a left. Yes. Yep.
And we are moving the guardrail down some. Is that right? So our entrance is actually going to move further toward the west, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, I think I have detailed plans here. The drawing, this drawing doesn't show that.
Okay, thank you.
So Trent, sorry, one more question. So during the summertime while you're under construction, obviously, there's limited accessibility to the school, but there will need to be ongoing accessibility to the school for school personnel and emergency vehicles. Hopefully that's not needed, but is that built into your construction detail of how that will happen?
Yeah, most of what we've got up in this area is some mill and overlay and so forth. So we're working on that plan right now to kind of be able to show you. But yes, we will have, and obviously we're not prepared to have, busloads of kids coming in. But yes, as far as access, we're not going to cut the school off at any time.
I do want to make sure that gets communicated to the mayor for your fire department, given that if one of these accesses is not available, they know the route to get into the facility.
Do we anticipate any pedestrian traffic on that long drive that they're building?
I believe the pedestrian traffic is right there on the green bike path.
Yeah. Yeah, we will connect. This is a path that's under construction now. That dashed is, and we'll connect up there, and then it'll have a crossing here, and this will connect all the way down to the trail here. So, and then across the southwest side of the roundabout to connect to, again, the new trail that's being built right now. So all the pedestrian traffic will be kind of along the road area, follow the road.
Do you anticipate any need for lighting?
I'm sorry?
Or any need for lighting?
The roundabout will have lighting. Oh,
On that stretch of driveway there on the south. The driveway that you're adding, right down here on the south. Do you anticipate any need for lighting?
I don't know if that's been discussed, no.
Trent, one other question. You mentioned that drive just would be south of the new roundabout, that we could either leave it or take it out. When do you need to make that decision, and who are you looking at to make that decision?
This drive this drive here?
Yeah.
That we were understanding that would come out. So I think that decision had already been made.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said we could leave it in there.
No, I said we could. The design would allow it to stay in there right there,
Okay, gotcha.
and not build this drive down here. But this is what the city had agreed to go ahead and build that drive. I think there was an interest for increased stacking length, and it lines up with the intersection down there as well.
Will that intersection have any other control, or is it just stop sign?
Just stop, just a stop on two-way stop. So Eastview goes free flow. Any other questions?
Brent, I have one.
Yeah.
The veterans concern, could that, the stack roads, could that be built before the rest of it is built?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we're looking at, is to put that in early so that then we're even outside of the city limits, or out of the limits of the construction, sorry. What I was talking about is, what I'm not aware of is all this, how much of it is, just a mill and overlay. And so literally it might be able to be open to that drive location till that's built. So one or the other, and then we would probably flop it. So yeah, I do think that's our intent. Any other questions?
Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Travel up here, I think Webb, don't they?
So the second project is the Mallory Parkway project. And I've got Randy Hancock here from Crossroads, who's going to talk you through this project.
Back in 2015, the city put in an application through a competitive process with the MPO here at Indianapolis to go ahead and make pedestrian improvements, safety improvements at Mallory. There's concern with Grizzly Cub Drive and the way it was coming in, and basically pedestrian access to the middle school and Northwood Elementary. So the project was indeed funded. Plans are ready to be turned in. Well, I think we're on a January letting, Mark, is that correct? Okay. And this project, similar to what the roundabout project is, it's also federally funded. Say we'll go ahead and let in January. Construction will be happening this coming summer. So this project's about a $600,000 improvement. As part of the work, this plan sheet was probably the easiest one to understand. Basically, crosswalk markings coming across US 31. We've cleaned up all the crosswalks and everything on school property, reconnected your driveway in Grizzly Cub, and kind of made the separation back here. The only real change, I think, that may be a little bit offsetting is a connection here for the school teachers parking lot. You are going to lose 9 parking spaces in this area through here. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward project. Like I say, we're on target to go ahead and let this thing. The only utility impact we had is there is a fire or a fire vault that sits about right in here, I believe. We are getting that relocated as part of the project, and those costs are being covered under the project. So there's nothing out the school property or school's pockets on this project.
Sure. We did make a couple of changes after speaking with Mr. Sewell and some of the officials at the middle school. Originally, the traffic pattern was going to be coming in off of 31 and then going in a southerly direction through the parking lot. We've changed that. The route is now going to be school buses only going in this direction. Cars will line up along the curb line, and I understand that school officials will stop any vehicle traffic, car traffic from leaving when the school buses are leaving the property. The other thing I wanted to mention on the fire protection vault, there will be about a 2-day period that that will be shut down. That means that there can be no occupancy of the school at all for that 2-day period. We'll be working with Mr. Sewell to coordinate that, as well as other school officials.
Maybe I misunderstood what you just said. So back to the traffic flow, you said the school bus only. So if you're traveling north on 31 and you turn right, or can you turn right if you're a car? Maybe I didn't understand that part.
You'll be able to turn right on 31, but only to go north toward the elementary school, or I believe to go east on the middle school property. You will not be able to turn and go south.
Is that section that you have here that goes off to the north, is that, you have to fill in that detention area?
Yes.
And is that detention area being relocated somewhere, or you've figured out that we don't need it?
Basically, we're going to go ahead and move the detention area here to the driveway east.
Okay.
So basically a relocation of the detention area.
Okay. And the same questions I asked of Trent, I'm going to ask of you in terms of schedule. Obviously, this is not as large, but you intended to do this during school break, is that my understanding?
Correct.
So again, I think we need to see your schedule development and your schedule risks as they exist so that we don't have an interruption and get to August, whatever that is, 11th or 12th.
We'll make sure the schedule's established, and we'll get that information to Jeff to go ahead and share with you guys.
And I'll reemphasize to you, liquidated damages don't mean anything to us.
We won't have any liquidated damages set up.
It's all about the ability to start school. So.
Correct, and that'll be incorporated into the bid documents we prepare, and similar to the roundabout project, this is also going to be a federal project as well, so it's going to be administered through NDOT. So we will have that language in the document so the contractors are aware of it before they go ahead and bid the project.
I have a question. Just on the north where the detention pond is, there's quite a few trees in that area, and one being a really, really old, big tree. Are all those staying, I hope? We're not losing any trees in this? Other than there's like one that's dying, I think, in some area, but.
To be honest, I'm not exactly sure if we're putting the trees back. I would have to go back and look.
Yeah,
I believe there is some minor impact, but I don't think that is the large tree that you're talking about, is that one that's got some historic value?
Yeah.
That one I don't think is going to be affected at all.
Great, thank you.
So, I'm sorry.
One
I'm
other
asking-
question that may
Yeah,
not.
sorry, go ahead. But
There are 6 lights along your current driveway that we're going to go ahead and relocate, so all that will be perpetuated as part of the project.
So if you pull off 31, do you have to drive all the way around the school? Is there concern about safety going around the back? I mean, at least from my perspective, you got kids not paying attention. That's pretty tight quarters.
So I had that same concern as we looked at the different alignments that have been considered. And I went and watched the traffic patterns for a couple of days to kind of see what are we doing currently. And the predominant there, I never observed any cars coming in that drive to access the school during a pickup or drop off time.
Well, right. Most of the time, the visitors won't know that, right? I mean, they're going to drive along 31. Oh, I see the building. They're going to pull in there. I mean,
And we have that's currently an option to them. We selectively, we have custodial staff that close that back drive during those times of the day when we have students back there. So those drives get intentionally closed off when we need them to be. Otherwise, they're open and you can travel behind them.
If you close that, how will they get to the school? And if people pull down there?
They'll have to loop back and go back out on the road, out to 31 and back
So how
down
will
to
they loop
Bantam.
back? I mean,
They'll have to, there's a turnaround drive down here. There's a drive where there's another bus drop-off location down here on the north side of the building. They can loop back and go back out and go back south to Banta.
I must not get this. Sorry.
So the frontage road that would run 2 ways is now just going to run north, correct? And so it will just be a big loop around the school during normal hours.
During all hours.
Well, but except for pickup time, they'll close that off, right?
But again, we just don't see traffic doing that very much at all right now in our current situation.
Okay.
Before school and after school or during the day?
I thought you said all the time. It's not accessible.
Right. The back drive is closed after school when the children are in that area for athletic practices.
So the people coming from the administration building in Northwood will only be able to go out that drive onto 31 to go north or south, however, or to go south. They can't drive in front of the middle school. Is that the question you're asking?
No, my question is it just seems like if you're a visitor, you're going to come in here and you're going to have to circle all the way around the school to get in the parking lot, right? Or maybe I'm wrong. That's what my question is.
That's just
During the day.
the people that are local just typically don't, because I've observed
I understand,
that.
but
Yeah. There's just not
I guess I'm not getting it,
there's
sorry.
not a good alignment to provide both directions of traffic. The
I think
original
that-
alignment did allow, as Mark explained, an incoming line of traffic to come here and only one outgoing. But our predominant traffic flow is all outgoing here. We don't have a lot of incoming flow. And we were going to be channeling a couple hundred cars that come here for pickup and drop off and buses through this same one single lane.
Good question. We don't have to make it one way all the time. We could make it one way at the end of school to get everybody out. But during the school day, I think what Brian's talking about, or during ball games or whatever, I'm coming from Greenwood down. The natural flow right now is to turn at the stoplight, go down the access road, go into the gym. That's what he's talking about. Is that correct?
And we've talked about that. That's an option. We can, if we decide we can manage that, we can do that.
So the one way is the decision for the school. It's not the decision of the city or HWC, correct?
Right.
Okay, is that
It was,
how-
the original design, it would have been
We can talk
structurally.
later. I mean, yeah, I don't know that it changes anything from the design. I think it just, from me, I'm just wanting to make sure that we're taking care of our kids and aren't inconveniencing all of our out-of-town guests.
Well, I think it does.
We
change
asked them
the
to
design.
remove a curb that would
Yeah.
have made it only one option. So
I
it's,
think it
it's,
does change the design.
it gives us both options now.
So that section is not wide enough for two-way traffic, right?
It is.
No, the section slightly up there.
Yeah.
Right there. That is designed for. So I would like, to Brian's question, again, you've got a lot of traffic coming from Northwood and the admin building during the day, and their only way to get out is to go to 31 or go around the school instead of going south as they normally would today. I guess the question that I think Brian's asking is that lane that is now one way to the north and east, do you have enough room to make that wider so that you can go straight except during morning and afternoon heavy traffic time?
We are at the point in project development where the final tracings are due, I believe, next month for a letting in January. If we delay the project to revise the design, we will miss that letting date and potentially lose the federal funding that we have for the project.
I think the decision that Jeff would have to do with is how you want to route traffic on your roads and the best service you're going to give the school. And that's the decision you guys need to make. I mean, we're getting pedestrian access improvements to get kids back and forth.
Yeah,
and that
that's
was the
important,
purpose of the
right.
project. As far as how you want to route traffic and move it back and forth, it's your driveway.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can go ahead and accommodate two ways if that's what you'd like to do. That's not a problem.
I'm posing the question. I don't know that I don't know that I have the answer. So I'm just, first of all, I was trying to understand it. And then secondly, I guess we can talk about it.
So the question is there any way to move that out a little bit to get two-way traffic right there, that bottleneck down the lane? Right.
And keep two lanes northbound and put another lane southbound here?
Just make it two right there going, right there. Yeah. Make that a little wider to get two lanes in.
Yeah, we can do that. It might cost you another 2 or 3 parking spaces.
I think that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and I'm asking a question. I don't know the answer.
Do we give up parking spots? So you sit right in the back.
That was where it started, was that being involved in Department of Transport, started designing safety as we can.
So 2 more parking spots, okay?
Yeah. That's quite a few, I think.
How about if we go ahead and work something up and send it to Jeff and let him circulate that?
Okay.
I think evaluating a redesign is appropriate. I think the overarching concern is your schedule. And is can you do both? So, of course you can. Engineers, you work miracles, right?
Do you think that with changing that to 2 ways, do you foresee a problem if it's not 2 ways?
I don't know that specific piece we're talking about that being 2-way or 1-way. We did bring up routing around the back of the building being an issue, creating maybe another problem by fixing one, creating another. And so I think the option, I can't remember, Jeff, in our conversation, because we talked about so many different things. So we were talking about the potential of that being 1-way or 2-way. We opted for 1-way, but I can't remember exactly why. Do you remember in our conversation?
The observation was that we weren't seeing traffic come in that way, at least during the drop-off and pickup. You are right, during the business day when administrators are moving back and forth, we commonly use Grizzly Cup Drive to get to the middle school.
I worry a little bit, thinking safety, if it's sometimes two-way, and then when we're trying to get a bunch of people out, making it one-way, I think it would need to be clearly labeled, because anyone who's done it's supposed to be, Grizzly Cup Drive is supposed to be one-way north at drop-off, but it's not. People find their way in, and it's not. So, I mean, it's a much bigger safety issue. We've got both of those being bus and car riders. For there to be any confusion at the end of the day, that's one way.
And that's a legitimate point, and I think if that's the direction you would rather go, that's fine. My overarching concern would be the amount of redirected traffic that's going to go behind the school without any additional controls that is going to prevent that.
Right, and it's not a great area.
That's exactly my concern.
So if we can find a way to mitigate that, and if your preference is to have one-way north, that's fine, but we've got to find a way to control the traffic going around. And the fact that the entire Northwood and admin community is going to have to go out onto 31. Now, I don't know if that's a problem or not, but I'm really concerned about the shortcut going on the backside of the school.
I agree. That was a concern in my from the beginning. Any additional traffic on the building is not ideal at all for anyone really.
If that's the case, then we need to give up the 3 parking spots because the project does not include anything beyond that helping get traffic flow in and out. So for us, we don't have any dollars set aside to increase that road surface or anything behind the building.
There was not even really much room either.
Unless you put barricades there.
Well, and that's what we would stop it right now. This is what happens. So really, it sounds like the 3 parking spots are the big question for us to eliminate that even as a possibility.
Make that wider?
Yes.
But then, as she was saying, it's going to be less safe if people are confused. Well, is this one way now or is it 2-way? With it narrower, you don't have the option. It's one way all the time. But then they're going around behind the school. I would think there'd be a lot of kids.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but what I am saying is that we need to do an evaluation of if we're going to make it one way, how are we going to do that? Now, that may not be their issue. That's our issue. I get that. But if we're going to leave that, if that's the preferential design, then we got to wrestle with the control going around the school. Don't get me wrong, I don't care one way or another.
Right now, it's
What I care about is the safety of going around the school.
There is a gate already on the south end. You can't even come into that property side. It's a metal gate. So on one end of the building, on the south side, as you're heading north, because that, if you remember, the city actually owns that. That's a little road actually onto our parking lot. It looks like it's our parking lot, but it's actually a city street. Right where the road enters the gym, first auxiliary gym, there's a metal gate. We closed that. They can't get through that. So people,
you can't cut it off there. You have to cut it off there.
Yeah.
At the entrance of that baseball field, you've got to be able to make sure folks don't go to the east at all.
Correct. I'm just saying that on one end we already have that, so we just have to do something else. I see your point on that other side.
Sounds like we need to talk a little bit more.
I mean, my counsel is I think you guys need to reconcile on how you want to manage the building, and that's fine. But if your decision is to leave it one way north, then David and Jeff, you've got to solve that problem. I think it's a real problem that needs to be solved, regardless of whether you create two-way traffic. Because this is what's going to happen. If you don't, people are going to come out of Northwood and they're going to go down They're going to go to the east and they're going to go on the back side of the property. They may get stuck and have to turn around and come around, but you still created a traffic window between the north side of the school and the baseball field.
So
Have fun with it.
widening it now, they can still do the one-way thing. They would have the option of changing it later if they wanted to, right? If they had to.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
Okay, if there's a bottleneck there, with that, there is no option of ever making it two ways without having to redo it.
Yes.
If it is made wider now, it could still be one way. They could decide we want this one way, it's gonna be one way. Yes, it would be wide enough for two-way traffic, but it's set up to be one way. But if we find out that is a real problem, there would be the option of changing it. If it's wide enough to start with, right or not?
Well, then you're relying on some other form of administrative controls or putting barricades up, but theoretically, you're correct.
We discussed an alignment that would bring one lane in and two out, and the turn radius is too tight to do that.
Not tracking it yet.
I did. The baseball 3 lanes.
Oh, I see.
So we have two out, and one coming in.
Understand.
So this would be two-way traffic. And, the engineer said this
Understand.
would meet specification.
Understand.
So, I think the other part of it is, there's the existing island here where the pedestrian traffic can access the sidewalk, it can also come straight through. We're just, there's a lot going on right there, and there aren't a lot of good options that we come up with the best option. But
Well, given the debate and the discussion that we've had, I think it makes sense to leave the design. In my opinion, it makes sense to leave the design as is. However, I'm asking you guys to deal with the eastbound traffic right at that intersection in some way. And if that means we need to invest in some gate arms or something, then fine, but.
yeah, it's off, there's a logical place to put that down, farther down the east. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable letting traffic go to the east and then getting back to the football field and turning around and going back. I think we need to stop that fairly soon, right after that crosswalk.
How much traffic do we have going back to the service buildings north of the football field?
well, I mean,
A lot.
the grounds maintenance staff
Right.
is back there,
So there's
there's quite a bit.
it'd have to be a barrier right there at the north end of the school.
We also have handicap bus, kind of on that circle drive, to travel on. So it would have to be right before that gate, right where that.
Maybe the solution is on the east side as they turn south. Maybe that's the solution, but I'd like for you to investigate to make sure that we explored that entire option if we're not going to allow traffic to go back that, to prevent traffic from going back. Well done, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mayor Barnett, did you want to say anything while you're here? We appreciate you coming. Okay.
Come on, Steve.
Thank you. Okay, and then we have Mr. Doty with the athletic overview.
Before you get started, those, I know in your previous life, you led this front.
I know, I'm like Sergeant Schultz. I know nothing.
Wow, okay.
No, I'm kidding, go ahead.
Now, Any comments from where you were sitting, was you were helping in the leadership stages of this conversation?
They were right. We initially had it where you could turn and go back south. That was the initial thought was safe routes to schools for pedestrians. And that was the focus. And dealing with bus traffic as it's gotten worse and car rider traffic over the past 2 or 3 years since we've done the safe routes to schools, it's added a lot of complexity to the project. And I think, either way you go, if you leave it one way and you deal with what you're talking about there, don't let them come that direction. For all of us that work during the day and try to access the middle school, and it's not during a dismissal or arrival, we can go to the backside if it's one way. I think you'd still be okay. Park around back, or you just go down the next exit. Leaving it one way, probably the best way. Jeff, where did Jeff go? I was going to tell him, if he gets bored with his new job, I can find a spot in athletic. Well, thanks for having me. I'll be brief. Talk a little bit about athletic successes for 2016 and 17, and then a couple things moving forward. Before I get started, I just want to say thank you to the high school staff and administration here for being supportive of the transition and my new role within the athletic department. And a special thank you to Cindy Martin and Michael Brewer for being patient with me as we made that transition. So they do a lot of work. If you see Mike or Cindy or just give them a pat on the back or send them a note, send them an email, they do so much work and they are always positive and upbeat and are great assets for the athletic department. Talking about our success in 2016 and 17, a few of these slides are what I presented at our fall parent meeting or kickoff meeting for fall sports. This is the first one I showed at that time. I want to show it again. We're all conference sports champions combined, boys and girls. You can see the scores there and where everybody falls within the conference. And something to note, we are 4th out of those 7 schools in enrollment. This is 2 years in a row that we've won this combined all sports, and 6 years in a row for the boys. And so a lot of great things. We talk about being a provider of choice. We talk about great academics here at the school, but it's also experiences. And there's opportunities here for a lot of kids to compete at a very high level. In sports, obviously with the Performing Arts Center down here, and there's a lot of experiences for everybody. And I'm going to share some of those with you here, some of those highlights for what it took to be combined all sports champions. I'm just going to read some of these highlights. Has everybody seen what John Regas has put out over the past 4 or 5 years? Points of Pride. And it may have actually been started by Kip Staggs, but these are about 12 pages full of all the highlights and awards and recognition that our student athletes and coaches received last year. I'm going to try to summarize that for you. 52 scholar student athletes for our conference. That is requires a GPA of 3.5 or higher. So we had 52 of those, 39 all-conference selections. We had 6 coaches receive Conference Coach of the Year award, 29 all-state awards or state finalists in their sport, 20 academic all-state athletes, and then Tony Harris, our boys soccer coach, just told me last week that the boys soccer team received recognition by the Coaches Association for having, this was last year's team, having a team GPA of over 3.25. Theirs is actually 3.4. So fantastic work, obviously both on the field and in the classroom. We're student athletes. It's education-based sports, and that's what it's about, and that's what I hopefully we highlight there. Another slide that I showed at the fall sports was this one right here. This shows our weight room project, and how do I've talked to Jeff about this. He's always talking about, once you get to great, because we're on that journey, good to great in our whole district. Once you get to great, how do you stay there? And it's our hashtag, everybody has a motto or hashtag now, so get after it. And in this is a quote from a podcast you guys talking about. There's always time to get better. And where do we get better for our athletes? Obviously in the classroom, on the academic side, but where can every athlete get better? And that's in the weight room. That's why it was important for us to renovate this weight room. There were, it's 10 years, going on 11 years old. You think, well, has the weight room, have things really evolved that much that we need to change what we were doing in there? And the answer is yes. We still do bench press, squat, clean, all those types of things, but the way the student athletes perform and move throughout a weight room is different now. There's agility, speed, flexibility, along with strength and power are the things that our student athletes are getting part of now. And I think you can see there a lot of there was if some of you have been in there was an observation deck that we took out. We opened it up, made it more expansive, and now we have a lot more kids taking the advanced weight class during school. And I think we have some classes that have 65, 70 kids in it, which with 2 or 3 teachers, they can manage that, but before, we would have never been able to have that many kids in weight class. A lot of good stuff going on there. Our goals moving forward, obviously number 1 for me was the high school weight room project. That's complete. There you see the picture of it there. Moving forward, we want to take our strength program to the middle school. We're actually going to meet with the middle school administration this Wednesday and start talking about that. How can we get our curriculum down there? Is there an advanced weight class that we can get before or after school with our athletes at the middle school level? Not necessarily doing a lot of weight, but understanding the movements that are required so that when you come here as a freshman, you're not just learning how to move. You already know those routines, and now you can hit the ground running. Start really adding weight to your movement. One thing I promised Mr. Rodriguez was to continue with the Student Athlete Leadership Council, where our first meeting is scheduled for Wednesday morning. If you remember, those are the athletes that also work with our unified track, Haley Anderson. So she's going to be there with us Wednesday morning and start talking about that. A few other things that are goals of mine. We want to start an alumni association or booster club. Deb's working on possibly an alumni association for the entire school. So Deb and I are going to talk, see if we just need to combine efforts or what that really looks like. But we need to start bringing back our time in the past and the present. These folks back. I want to recognize multiple sport athletes in a school our size. When we have 1,650 kids, we're trying to compete now. When Perry Meridian comes in, they're going to be well over 2,000 kids. We need multiple sport athletes. We need to recognize that. And all the coaching staff, they're on board with this. They understand that they need to share athletes. And how do we make that work? So one of the things we need to recognize those kids. Teacher and family passes, we just started this. We brought back the teacher tailgate. Our high school staff got in free along with their family. Obviously, any staff member can come to the football game for free, but their family could not. We just started this last week, and I think it went really well. We had a tailgate, we had Scott Martin grilled, and had some fun times down there at the north end of the football stadium. And the last thing we need to work on would be LED boards for sponsorships, things like that for generation. So those are some big goals that we have moving forward. We're already tackling some fall sports storylines. We're coming in now. halfway through fall sports, we've started seeing some sectionals and tournaments. Series started, county and conference tournaments are underway or have already been completed. Just give you some rundown. Cross country, multiple wins, runner-up finishes. Had a great weekend at Brown County this last weekend. And they will challenge for county, sectional, and conference regional championships this year. Girls golf started off with a win with the season. Started the season with a win. They've had multiple wins at pool meets and have two girls that are all conference. Boys tennis, runner-up in the county, in a close match with Center Grove, and we will host a conference here next week, 21st and 23rd. If you want to come out and watch the boys soccer off to a great start. They're 6-2-1, 3-0 in the conference. Volleyball 13-3, 3-0 in the conference. And finally, if you see there in the middle of the hall from Houston, may have, if you came to the football game or came to any sporting event last week, we had Marcus Davis and a few other folks around town. Marcus really coordinated this, worked on this to get a trailer, a trailer out by the football stadium to donate, for everybody to donate items that will be taken to Houston for that. So really kudos to Marcus for that, and you see him. Great job for that. I talked to him today. I didn't look in the trailer, but he did say it's about half full. So talk about a semi-trailer and what we were able to pack in there. It's going to Houston. Everybody's doing that across the country. And that's really kudos to everybody in the community from Whiteland and from Franklin. It was a combined effort this past week. Really just moving forward, this was my final slide, and I'm not going to show you the video now, but you can, if you have this PDF, you can click on that discipline. That's a video. It's a podcast from Jocko, and we talk about discipline and what that means for our student athletes. And when you are an athlete or you're in anything extracurricular, you have to be disciplined to have time management skills and to get your academic all your studies done and still hit practice and take care of yourself, be healthy, eat the right foods, those types of things. That's what we talk about discipline. It's it's a lot of hard work by the student athletes, but it should come as no surprise that student athletes perform academically better than those that are not in a sport or not in any other extracurricular activity. So discipline is what drives them. That's what we're talking about this year. Happy to answer any questions. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Well, Mr. Doty, you're back up later today.
Okay, we'll move on to iStep and iRead scores. Mrs. Nally.
This will be quick. Last Friday, the state released the embargo for iStep and iRead scores. I just want to share those publicly. iRead, I didn't work up a graph. We had everybody pass, but 2 students between the spring and summer testing. Those 2 students, the state kind of loosened their thoughts about, as before they had to be retained in the 3rd grade classroom. That loosened up a little bit this summer. So both of those students went on as 4th graders that are receiving 3rd grade English language arts instruction. They'll retake iRead 3 again this year. But here are a quick look at our iStep results. I only compared them to the state average because the trend data is really meaningless at this point because it changes all the time. So you can kind of see here, we are relatively close to the state average, in some cases above, and in some cases just slightly below. But here are all the scores. This whole is really 90% for Union. The sheet I was working on had to have an N of 10 or more before it would give me a number, and Pass Plus and failures didn't have 10 or more, so Katie told me. Thank you, Katie. And then here is science and social studies as well, in those respective grade levels. So you can see, we look at our our high school scores, and we almost catch our breath until we see the state scores, and we just got to see those on Friday. So even though we want to be higher than this, obviously, when the state average is 34% for math and 57% for ELA, it's more than just us. I mean, there's problems with this test. So.
Can I ask a question about that? So at the 10th grade level, those kids can't graduate from high school until they pass that test.
That is correct.
So even though we kind of are not focusing so much on ISTEP, maybe those kids need to be told a little more seriously down the road that, maybe starting a little sooner, that you have to pass this and we need to focus just a little bit more. I don't know.
And we don't give the message at the high school that we're not going to celebrate ISTEP, because that is their graduation exam. So that's the one place where, they really need to focus. And I think, we've had a lot of conversation recently about NWEA and student goal setting in middle school and high school, and getting the students to take more ownership about for their success here. We had some math teachers attend a workshop last week on supposedly helping guide us a little bit with tests and exactly what is on the tests and how to, because what happens in math is it's not just the Algebra 1 test anymore, it's a 10th grade math test. So there's geometry, there's algebra, there's data and statistics, and not all kids have had it, or they've had it 2 years ago and have kind of forgotten it. So the math teachers are trying to kind of rework their teaching structure to make sure that they are reviewing at least and spiraling all of those math skills in all year long.
And so when will they take that again? When do they have to?
They have a chance to take it in the winter and then again in the spring.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
No. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to action items, and the first item on that is a public hearing on the 2018 budget, and that is since it's a public hearing, we need to call that to order. So I will call that to order. We are having our public hearing on the 2018 budget, and we'll start with Mr. Mercer.
With all due respect to the mayor and the engineers who are here, Mrs. Brown-Nally did inform me tonight that for the first time in our history, the building principals in the back are actually clamoring for the budget stuff. So I'm happy to do that. So I think we need to do the public hearing for the items that were listed for you and outlined last meeting.
So we just need to
close the meeting.
close.
Open up the
Okay,
public
so
hearing.
that's it. All right.
Questions or comments?
But do we vote though? Do we do any?
No.
voting?
First,
Okay.
are there any comments?
Oh,
from the
yes,
public
comments, yeah.
Concerning the budget?
Since you're clamoring back there, do you have any?
So
No.
does anybody have anything
Yeah.
to say?
Okay. All right, well then we will close that part of the meeting and we will move on to the Performing Arts Show Series. No?
Actually, we've
No,
got,
now we need to approve.
yep,
Okay, this
we have
is all-
two resolutions that are on.
Okay, so that was just one thing, and then
Right,
these are separate. We do these both separately then?
yes, well,
Okay.
we can do them together,
We can.
but there are two separate resolutions. One is to approve the capital projects plan that we listed for you last month, as well as the bus replacement plan that were outlined in the public hearing.
For the two resolutions.
Okay, all right, I have a motion. Any other questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Okay, any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, now we're done. Now we can move.
I want to test Mr. Corliss. I'd like to see him sell out the 2018 public hearing.
I would love to sell out.
If you recall last month, as Doug comes up, he introduced the concept of a series for us. And he and I met.
Thank you.
after that meeting to kind of talk about what that would look like. And tonight, he's here to ask for approval for the series concept. And then obviously the contracts would still go to Mr. Young first as we move in this area. But so with that, Mr. Corliss.
And the only reason I gave you guys kind of this outline was kind of speed things up. I didn't want to take too much of your time, but wanted to try to if you had any questions, I can address those. But really, the series is just a series of individual shows. They're individual contracts. There's no really blocking except for the marketing side of this. And that's really what we're doing when we release the series information. It's in an effort to market it early. People can plan out their year, and that's really the only reason we're doing it, and we're calling it a series. That's what every performing or presenting organization calls it, is a series. So just going down through the lines real quick, we're marketing as a series. Each show has individual contracts. All those, like Dr. Clending said, he'll see those, Roger will see those, approve those, and then I'll bring them forth to you guys. Timeline for a successful professional season, usually January 2018 is when I'll do kind of a presentation to you guys, giving you updated information about our financials and what we're looking for in that series. Just some general things, like if we're going to do a comedy or a concert of some sort, give you guys kind of that information. Then by March 1st, we will have finalized all those shows, have more details about them. April 1st, contracts will come forth to be signed. May 1st, series will be released publicly. And then in September is when it all starts over again. We go to Arts Midwest and start looking for next year's round of shows. The next bullet point down, the outline of presenting process, that's that second page I gave you guys. That's just kind of informational that takes you through what the entire process looks like when we're going and selecting shows, auditioning things, and just really details out any kind of questions you might have about the operating process of presenting a show. I can let you guys just look through that. I mean, if you have any questions about it, please ask. Kind of touching on our financial state right now, year to date, a balance, we're about $125,000. That doesn't include about $36,000 in invoices yet. So we're about $161,000 year to date. Projected gross annual income through June 2018 next year, we're about $300,000. And we'll give you an updated financial report come January 2018. And just looking, going ahead and just giving you some updates on things. I met with Ken with Journey Johnson County, the new tourism director, doing some partnering and coordinated efforts with them. We're super excited about that on our professional series stuff, getting people into Johnson County that don't live in Johnson County and getting people that live in Johnson County engaged in what we're doing here, and offering them high quality, affordable entertainment, and building those relationships with our community. Ian and I are coming back from Arts Midwest, and this isn't on the outline, but we went through some professional development about making connections and the downfall and decline in patronage across the board with athletics and performing arts and just people going out and engaging in things. And from 1982 to today, it's declined almost 38%. So it's re-engaging people. It's a study that was done by Arts Midwest and the National Endowment for the Arts, and it's just all about making connections. And we're really excited about implementing that and getting our audience, our community, and people outside of our community engaged and getting excited about coming here to see events. And lastly, some coordinated efforts with our community and our community's businesses and Johnson County businesses. And just so you guys know, there is no professional organization that presents that is successful solely on ticket revenue. That's just not a thing. It is donor driven, it's sponsor driven. There are other sources of income. And for us to be successful, we have to go out and do that as well. There's a little tiny theater up in Portland, Indiana, that has a lot less seats than we do, and they're putting on just as big a shows as we are, but they have those sponsor and donor dollars to work with. It won't be an overnight thing. It will be a gradual thing, but it's an effort that we intend on pursuing to make this successful for you and our community.
Okay.
I have a couple questions actually. So do you have a idea of like how many shows you want to put in the series?
Ideally, it's about 5. And I say about 5 because it could go one way or another depending upon routing, booking, availability, what the community will support, those sort of things. But we're looking at about 5, starting sometime in early as September and ending sometime in April. And that also would include some of our children's series stuff as well. And all the programming that Ian and I look at is family-based programming. Some of it is directed more towards children, and some of it is more towards the entire family. And sometimes, like with the Hitmen, it's a family-friendly program, but it's going to be a baby boomer style show. So to give something back to that demographic as well, I don't want to leave any demographic out when I'm doing this. So approximately 5 shows a year.
So this is under action items. What's the action? What are we approving?
Your permission for us to continue with the contractual agreements and things and proceed with our series for the rest of this calendar year and early 28.
Okay, I have a motion. Do we have any other questions or comments?
Yes, I still don't really know what we're approving.
You're approving the concept of the performing arts series, and then we'll continue to negotiate the contracts. But one of the concerns, we talked about that, was if we keep coming back each individual time for a contract, it's hard for Doug to package that to his audience. So the order that is to come back and promote it as one big series.
Okay.
And so we're tonight just asking for you to give approval that you can go do that and package that, and then the contracts will go through Roger as a normal flow of action.
Okay. So he'll review the contract. Is there anyone from I don't know, you or who's actually will you be signing the contract?
You guys will sign
Okay.
the contract.
Just trying to understand logistics, how this works.
Really, from behind the scenes, we're doing just what you're doing right now for different shows.
Okay.
We're just trying to get out ahead so that we can package them, work our calendar, so that our kids and our schools can still fall inside the pack. And then financially, work alongside with Jeff and myself on what that looks like.
Okay.
So really today, you're approving the concept, we can go ahead.
Got it.
There's no money, there's no risk in that regard, but it is approving the concept. I just felt safer doing that than saying, hey, Doug, go for it, and then you guys have questions down the road.
Fair point.
After this, I would be collecting all the contracts for the rest of the series, and those will come, hopefully all of them come before you next board meeting.
Got it.
That way, because we cannot promote anything of any artist until we have a signed contract by them. Looking it out ahead of that marketing, trying to be successful with this, that's what we're thinking.
That makes sense.
Everybody on board? We're all okay. All right, so we have a motion. All those in favor of the motion, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to financial and HR software with Mr. Sprout and Mr. Mercer.
Before Matt kickstarts us here in just a second, I want to make just a quick comment. So we have used the CompuTrol software system for the last 214 years, which I think they updated about 210 years ago. And it's a DOS-based system. They told us that they would be coming out with a Windows-based system, and when that happened, it would cost us between $80,000 and $100,000 to implement that new software. At that point, we engaged Matt. If we're going to have to pay $80,000 to $100,000, we're going to look at every single software product on the market. And Matt was kind enough to walk alongside us and as always did a great job.
And he was only kidding, or he was not kidding about it. This is probably the only software application that I have never upgraded during my entire tenure here. So we have made the most of this application. It is time to look at upgrades. The root cause is the exorbitant price. Currently, we paid $15,000 for it, and we want to be amenable to our taxpayers and do the best we can with it. When they come in and say, hey, we're going to charge you 4 or 5 times that, it's time to evaluate the software. And as such, you might expect we created a project charter with a problem statement basically saying that we're going to assess the software applications and install that based on approval. We did have a wide range. Oh, no, this is me. I'm sorry. I'll turn it over here in a second. This is a list of evaluation team. The nice thing about the new versions of this application is it integrates accounting and human resources. And so Jeff and I were able to lead the project with both representatives from our HR department along with the accounting department. This is a lot of dedication. We looked at 6 different applications, and so this is quite a bit of time commitment.
As you might expect, we did an AHP on the front end with 12 variables. They are listed in order of importance as our team took a look at the various applications. We then took the AHP with the prioritization and applied that to a Pew matrix so that when we scored each one of the vendors, there was a numerical representation for how we felt like they did. I will tell you too, God love the ladies that spent time on this committee. They absolutely roasted them over a period of about 2 months. And in fact, the one that ended up winning, they really roasted. I've never seen or had so many questions asked. And in fact, they were teaching school corporations that are currently there about the new features on the product that you're going to see here. So a lot of legwork done on the front end before we even got to the project.
As Jeff just said, we called schools as a reference. Say, hey, we hear you're using this. And Jeff's ladies were teaching them how to use their application. So they were very thorough. So we wrote an RFP based on the AHP. A request for a proposal. These were the 6 companies that responded to the RFP. We met with each one based on the HP and the Pew diagram. Skyward was the company that best met our needs when it came to human resources, when it came to communication with our staff and such. What the really great news about Skyward was it was less expensive than our upgrade on our current application. They did have an initial price. The year 1 is $85,410. Years 2, or years 1, 2, and 3 come in at $40,290. Years 4 and 5 are $41,900. We were able to talk them down $30,000. They wanted to charge us for the use during the implementation, so I negotiated that out. They're still in the process of installing it, so there was no need for us to be charged to use it. Twisting their arm, they finally agreed to that. In addition, they threw in some opportunities for training on top of what they're going to provide for us. So we would request approval of this 5-year. Roger will get a copy of the contract, so if your approval would be pending his approval of the contract.
I might mention too, that you see the annual cost at $40,000, which is more than we spend right now, probably 15 to 20. However, it's not likely to be that much more than what CompuTrol would have been in their new Windows-based system. There's an HR function in here as well. This will extend all the way down to the buildings. And I think the efficiencies gleaned from this new software, we will make up for this twofold in whatever it costs by just saving time in what we're doing right now. I can't even detail for you the number of ways that I think this will save us time.
This software has a feature called copy and paste that our current one doesn't. So we're looking forward to that.
was good.
So we'd be glad to answer any questions or request approval pending Roger's reviewing of the contract.
Move for approval.
Have a motion. Questions, comments?
Just one comment, just thanks for a rigorous and diligent process.
Did you guys get your ECA question answered finally?
We did.
In our favor?
Yes.
We can work within the confines, yes. And so it will mean that all buildings are on the Skyward platform. Many schools have the Skyward platform for HR and for the central office accounting function, but they farm out all the buildings to another software application, which seemed totally nonsensical, and we were able to sort that out.
Well done, gentlemen, well done.
We have a motion. All those in favor by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to discussion items. Mr. Doty, you're back.
Thank you very much. The title on this is gaming license. It should be charitable gaming license. I'm eventually ask after discussion for tonight, I can come back next month and ask for request of approval to allow me to apply for a charitable gaming license. Just want to read this to you. Actually, this is a whole thing off of the Department of indiana.gov. This is the frequently asked questions, but I just want to read who would apply for such license. In order to meet the definition of qualified organization, the organization must be nonprofit, religious, educational, senior citizen, veterans, or civic organization that is exempt from taxation. And then there's some other Indiana code written in there, but that's who this is type of gaming license is for. It's for us to legally do raffles and such. Included in a raffle, a 50-50 drawing is considered a raffle. So that would be one example of what this would be used for. Why do I want this for the athletic department? Really, it would be for the high school as a whole, but two things. It can generate revenue, for one. That's no secret. But it also generates some excitement during sporting events and any other event you may have. There's some ways to play games at maybe halftime or things that we just don't do, and we could do to add some excitement to our event. So those are the reasons. Happy to entertain any questions. I haven't thought of everything, so I'm happy to, if I can't find the answer here tonight, I'm happy to research it and come back to you.
So Bill, I went out to the indiana.gov site, and it looks like there's quite a few constraints that we've got to live within around who manages the process, who can participate in the process, and also, could you come back to us with a little bit more of those details on how we're going to manage that? I think the site was real clear that whoever manages it cannot participate. That's right. And we've got to be clear on tracking those individuals. So I think there's going to be a lot of overhead for you. We need to make sure that we understand that before we go through and apply for this.
Right. And where my thought was on this would be if we were to do it at any particular sporting event, that parent group or whatever it would be for, let's say, football, Grizz Club would help me, and so they would provide a worker then who would not participate in the game, as it were, for that evening, things like that.
Well, and that's where I was unclear on the indiana.gov site, is that can it be per individual game, or is it for a calendar year?
Per individual game, and there's actually in here, so I'm happy not to take time. But I can send you those, find those answers out. I can send them in Friday notes or come back next month. But it is what I read just today was it's individual game. So if someone were to let's say do a 50-50 drawing, went around, passed out the tickets, took the money, that person could participate the very next night in a very similar game if they were not working. So they just, one of the restrictions is that we cannot pay them. They are a worker, but they would not receive compensation for doing or going out and making that raffle or whatever it may be. So they would not be paid by us, but they would have to, they're going to handle our money. So they need to be quote unquote a worker, right? Somebody that we trust and have went through those same pitfalls that we all have to go through to work here.
Is this for the athletic department only, or is this encompassing to?
We would apply on behalf of the high school. We could apply on behalf of the corporation.
That's what I was going to suggest, actually, because I could see, I mean, maybe an elementary PTO wants to do something. I don't.
Yeah, we can do the school corporation, I believe. Let me research that, because when I look, I mean, there's a whole list on there of everybody that in the state that has this license, and you see high schools out there in a school district. It's usually the high school that it is under the named licensee, but I can certainly research to see if you all want to do Franklin Community School Corporation or Franklin Community Schools, then I can certainly apply in that manner. In the you notice it if you open up that license, it does ask for all of your names and addresses and everybody. So I mean, there's a lot of detail obviously that we have to supply them so that they understand and believe us when we say who we are applying for this. So I have to work with Jeff to supply financial records and things like that.
So if Grizz Club were to help you, are they doing the raffle or are we doing it?
We do the raffle, but they would just be our worker.
So PTO wanted to help at Creekside. We're still doing the raffle. Creekside Financial is helping.
That could be, yes.
All right. And I think Christy had a question about age.
Yes, how, like, if you're at the football game and you're doing a 50-50, what's the age?
We would only do that for adults on a 50-50 drawing. Now, I would say that kids could participate in a different example of like a pizza giveaway or something like that at halftime. We're going to pull ticket stubs and do some kind of giveaway for a shot at half court or something. That could be a kid because they actually bought the ticket to get into the game. So it's a game of chance. That's what this actually, it's not this does not govern silent auctions and things like that. Those aren't games of chance. That's what all this is about, is a game of chance. So depends on what type of game, but a 50-50 drawing I would only do for adults. I would not allow, we would not sell to our high school students for that.
So there's nothing in there that says there's
nothing in here that prohibits you from somebody a certain age. I did not read anything like that.
Any other questions?
I can come back next month and hopefully bring more information back to you.
Thank you.
On that, on our process by which we will manage through it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. Okay, next up is board and administrative comments. Mr. Sewell with the transportation update.
I'm going to keep this real brief. Doug's been working real hard to make our bus rides shorter and to address some of the crowded buses. And the main way he's been able to accomplish that is by balancing loads on buses by shifting some students from one bus to another. And that has helped several routes. I have way too many specific actions to list for you in detail. The other thing he has done is he's added an afternoon bus into the Heritage neighborhood, which was one of our longer routes, and it is also adding a bus from Union to go to the middle school so that students can be dropped off, catch a bus there to make the trip into the middle school. So those are just a handful of the things that he's undertaken to reduce ride times. He has also been studying kind of what our ridership looks like and how ride times compare this year to last year. Mining that data out is a time-consuming process that we'd rather have him spending fixing the problem. So I don't have a lot of detail on that, but I will share with you that our longest routes last year, based on the GPS information we have in the buses, were 105 minutes in length. This year, the comparable routes are 95 minutes in length. So they're still longer than we'd like for them to be, but they're comparable to where they were last year, if not a little bit shorter. The other thing that's a part of the reality of the longer routes is that we have layover times for students that are riding to Custer Baker and for students at the high school that are passing through middle school on the way home from school. So, for example, anyone who's going to Custer Baker, almost all of the kids that are riding a bus to Custer Baker are going to experience a 20-minute layover at the elementary school before they make the trip to the intermediate school. And so those times factor into these 60-minute or longer bus rides. And so it would take quite a bit additional resources and bus drivers to completely mitigate that, because you'd have to run dedicated buses to every school to really accomplish that. So those are some of the challenges we face as we try to make it better than it has been. I think our feedback from the community has settled into a kind of a new status quo that we are still striving to improve, but I think we are in good shape and getting better all the time. Doug is in the process of hiring 2 more drivers that will enable us to add a couple of more routes to further reduce some of our longest bus trips. So that's what we have so far to date. We anticipate adding those new bus drivers in October. And so that'll be kind of the next wave of significant improvement will happen in October. Be glad to take your questions.
I mean, I mean, you've got an almost impossible task, right? I get that. And so I guess, do we have an idea of percentage-wise, roughly, the amount of kids that are over an hour?
That is a question I haven't been able to get an answer to. I have the same question, and it's the difficulty in mining the information out of the GPS data.
That's what you were saying. Okay, that's what you're saying.
It's really those first kids on the longer routes. Now we originally thought there were 26 routes that have rides over an hour. When we got into the actual GPS data, there's really only 18 of those. So the number's not as bad as we thought it was. And it's really just those first few students that get on those 18 routes that are having the long bus route rides.
It just sounds like a kind of a silly question, but it's kind of relevant. So when you say GPS data, does that time just stop when, let's say, I know some buses stop, they don't let off kids. So did the GPS time include that sitting time? Or
yes.
It did.
The GPS starts when they roll out of the parking lot. It tells us every time the bus stops, every time the arm goes out at a stop to take a kid. So we can kind of tell when was that first stop down to the minute and second. I mean, it's pretty precise information. Cool. Then we know when the last stop was made at the school where the kid was dropped off. So that's much better, like actual time, than the software predicted when we were building routes in Versatrans. So that's where we kind of go to really know in real life what happened in each day.
Just thanks to Doug and his team and you for hounding this.
He continues to work at it. I hope to let him go home at a decent hour.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I mean,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, on to the calendar.
Just a reminder, we're at Webb on the 29th. We started breakfast at 7:30. The highlights and celebrations for Webb Elementary School. Fall break is 16th to 20th, and remember this year we do have a board meeting before the date, so it's the 9th. So in the past it's been after that, so that's a reminder. And then you received today in your inbox an email from Terry Spradlin, the new director of ISBA. And Terry used to work at NEA, and before that he was in the House as a liaison for House Representatives. The conference is October 1st and 2nd. But please let Natalie know if you would like to attend. We'll be getting reservations and registration and all that stuff in as soon as possible. So I know I'll be attending. I think in the past it's been Christy and Danny for the most part, but it'd be great if you guys could attend. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to public comments. Okay, we have one.
My name is Jason Scott. The Mallory Parkway situation is going to affect me and a few parents in the future here. I right now have 2 students in 6th grade at CBIS, so they'll be at middle school next year. Now, it won't directly affect me immediately because I'll be leaving from Creekside to get 2 of my kids and then coming that way. But I still will have to go through Jefferson and 31 intersection, which is usually always backed up all the way back to Hospital Road area. If that is all one way, and when I wind up having my kids in middle school and high school, it will be very difficult to turn into the middle school, especially if you guys decide to keep that as one way there at Mallory. The stoplight is a godsend to come in. I just happened to know that because of a fundraiser we did. But with the band for CBIS and in conjunction with the middle school this past weekend, going all the way down to the other end routes, especially with all the traffic coming north for the Kroger and the new strip mall there, you're waiting almost 10 to 15 minutes sometimes to make it into the parking lot. And so you're going to have people like me who are driving in from another city because of a divorce and having to fight traffic to get in to pick up our students on time. And so having a way to go south off the light needs to be found for us and future parents. That's it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. Thank you. I think Jeff's